In this video, I'm going to interview Bea Grandell, who is an experienced recruiter and talent acquisition lead in the gaming and IT industries. Today, we're going to be talking about the Finnish IT and gaming industries, and Bea is going to share a ton of valuable tips on how to prepare for a career and how to find jobs in these fields. Let's jump into it.
All right, thank you, Bea, so much for joining us. I'm really grateful that you agreed to share some of your time with us. As mentioned, today we're going to be discussing jobs specifically in the fields of IT and technology, and hopefully you will be also sharing some insights into the Finnish gaming industry. So I'm super excited to hear about that as well. Before we jump into the discussion, would you like to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, I'm Bea. I work in the IT/gaming industry, worked in companies such as Unity, which is one of the top 50 most successful IT companies in Finland. So there I was one of the first EMEA recruitment team members. So when we started scaling the whole company in Europe big time. After that, I joined a consultant company. So I've also helped different companies in scaling up and building their recruitment functions and being better with recruitment, but also obviously headhunting people for those companies. And today I'm working at Seriously, which is the fourth biggest gaming company in Finland. So there I'm leading the recruitment function and employer branding.
Great. So you have really wide experience in specifically recruiting in Finland and also scaling up and hiring international talent. So I'm sure this is going to be a super interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Before we actually jump into the IT field specifically, I thought that we could discuss a bit about the job market in general in Finland for international talents. So there's a lot of confusion and actually misinformation, floating around the web. About the job market for international job seekers in Finland. So in your own words, how would you describe the current job market situation for international students and graduates?
Well, I've been so lucky that I've been working in companies where it doesn't matter if the person speaks English or not. So I have a certain kind of perspective to matters. And if an international person doesn't find a job because they don't speak Finnish, I find it really funny and awkward, but I know the situation, the reality, and that was also really interesting working as a consultant because you get to explore the whole market. But yeah, for the thing is that there's obviously, like, we talk about talent shortage, we talk about talent gaps, like, that are the needs that companies want, and the talent that is available doesn't match really. So I find it pretty sad that if there are 3,000 international students who start studying in Finland and only 1,000 of them stay in Finland because they are not able to find a job, or they simply don't want to stay. So that's something that whole Finland and maybe the companies are to blame, not the students per se. But all in all, most companies are definitely looking for senior talent, which is one part of the problem, which makes it really difficult for junior talent to find a job and stand out of the crowd, because there's quite many applications for junior roles, but not so many for senior ones.
And we will jump into this a bit, hopefully a bit later. Yeah. But while I was working at A-Talent Recruiting, we actually had a lot of discussion about companies building these kind of growth programs where they would actually take in younger talent directly from school after graduating and starting to build them up as professionals in their own fields. And this idea or this vision would have been that these companies that, as you mentioned, they usually want more senior people who have more experience in their field. They would have a unique opportunity to actually educate their own professionals for their specific needs. But at least currently, I don't know of any company that would have this kind of a program, which is kind of sad because, as you mentioned, quite a lot of international students actually end up leaving the country, which is, of course, of course, a big waste for Finland because we really need the talent here.
True.
But for some reason, the match isn't there.
Yeah.
But what would you say in terms of, in addition to the things that you mentioned already, what are the biggest challenges that international job seekers face in Finland? And what are the reasons that the matches don't happen?
Well, one of the challenges is that there are still so many companies who require Finnish, and there are still so many IT companies where the working language is Finnish. So converting that mindset and the whole work environment so that people would speak English and the documentation would be in English and many other. So that might be, that's the first struggle for companies, from companies' point of view, to change that. And then there's obviously the challenge that there's that people want junior talent, people want senior talent, and then for juniors to stand out is really difficult. And if the employer prefers even a tiny bit of candidates who speak Finnish, then that's really challenging.
Right. That's very true. And these are also the things that I hear quite a lot from the audience as well, that they, of course, it's natural for them to bump into these issues. But I actually think that your point about the language requirements was really important, where you mentioned that it's not only that you need to perhaps speak Finnish, but you also need to you need to also be able to read Finnish, because many companies, even to big publicly traded companies in Finland, some of them still have their documentation, all of their systems in Finnish, which is completely crazy in my opinion. And it is a big change process when they start moving towards a more international system. But again, that is something that they have to do at some point, because we are going to lose all the potential international talent at some point. But
yes. And I think that if you someday want to internationalize, if you want to be an international company, you want to export from outside of Finland, then you really need to change your company's work language to English in early stages, because the more you grow, the more difficult it's going to get. And starting that kind of internship program is actually a really good step. So the first step is that if you really want to internationalize and change your working culture into English and language and documentation, the way of working into English, then you do that. And then one way to implement it is, for example, to create an internship program. Where you have dedicated mentors who then mentor with the work, but also at the same time, the mentors are able to change their way of working into English.
Really good point. But if we move specifically into the fields of IT and technology, a common understanding is that these fields are the most international fields in Finland. And they have, in general, a lot of opportunities for international talent. Is this true? And how do you see the fields of IT and technology now and in the future?
Yes, this is true. And if I start with our very niche industry, so the games industry, so the whole games industry in Finland is 3,500 employees, which is super, super small. So in the IT industry, gaming industry, 30% of all the employees are international. And the gaming industry, the way we see it currently, wouldn't exist at this level without international talent. But then again, the gaming industry is very specific as well in terms of relocation. So companies hire talent from abroad. You want the best talent to build the best games and the best products. There is a talent shortage, but also talent gap in the IT industry. And IT industry is extremely important for whole Finland. So the way I see it, there are definitely openings. There are still over tens of thousands openings or talent gap that we need in the future.
Yeah, but actually, interesting point to what you said just now is that I remember reading from the Yle News Broadcasting Company, which is the national broadcasting company, 2 years ago, that we have a talent shortage of 20,000 people in the IT field. And the projection 2 years ago was that that gap is going to grow by the thousands each year. And one of the reasons is simply that the universities are not able to keep up with the with the IT field, especially because it's developing so quickly. But yeah, super shortly, the second part of my question was, how do you see the market in the future? Where do you think it's going?
Well, this year has been very tricky, obviously, because of Corona, and now it's 2020 when this is being recorded. So there are companies who have done massive amount of revenue, and then some companies who haven't. This year, it's really hard to talk about the IT industry, whether it's doing really well or bad, because there has been a lot of temporary layoffs, but not so many actual layoffs. And it looks like most IT companies, their revenue will drop this year compared to last year. But still, the IT industry, I would say it's doing pretty well.
Right. And this is what, excuse me, this is my gut feeling as well, especially if you look backwards. I worked in the recruitment market from 2016 to now September 2020. And during that entire 4-year period, the IT industry grew a lot, especially considering hiring and many companies, recruitment companies that specifically specialize in IT recruitments actually were founded between that 4-year gap. And of course, this year has been very difficult for many of them. But then, in addition to the general outlook on the IT field, there's actually been quite a lot of discussion in Finland during the last few years about something called a job seekers market, or työnhakijan markkinat in Finnish. In summary, for those who don't know what this means, this means that there is more demand for highly educated talent in a specific field compared to what there is supply. So the most commonly cited problem, again, going back to what I said just a couple of minutes ago, is that the IT field is developing so quickly that the universities and other schools in Finland are simply not able to keep up and produce enough talent that are going to match the demand. So question to you, is it actually true that there is a job seekers market in Finland in the fields of IT and tech? And if yes, what does that actually mean?
Yes, I'll quickly reply to the university stuff that yeah, you're right that the universities are not able to keep up with the pace because there's so many new technologies and ways of working constantly. One advice I would give to universities is that there would be more courses when people can choose the technologies that they build some kind of product or project. And another one is to teach agile practices, because now it's in every single company. And I feel that every time I interview junior talent, this week I had one person who asked me, what's Scrum? And then I'm like, oh my goodness, but that's in every single company. Well, maybe not Scrum per se, but then agile practices. So that's one tip for universities.
But actually, this is a really good tip for anyone who wants to develop themselves, especially considering this year web self-development through different online learning platforms has grown tenfold. And specifically using these keywords, agile development, for example, Scrum, and then building different projects based on different technologies, different development languages. That is a great hobby for you to have, and all of these kind of hobbies, if you have the time and willpower to actually build something on your own time, that is going to be very valuable for you in the upcoming job hunting seasons. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yes, I would. Yeah, but to answer your initial question, there is, I would say yes and no. for senior talent and most wanted talent, so those who have that niche skills that the companies are looking for them, it's definitely candidate-driven market. You can just sit back. You don't have to apply anywhere necessarily. People refer you to their workplaces, or you get headhunted for companies, and then you get to decide whether you want to work, where you want to work, and where you don't. And I always say that it's not especially for seniors, it's not the war for talent, it's the war for attraction. So which companies are the most attractive and the most successful in retaining their employees and such. For junior talents, it's yes and no. In a way, the best talent are always, the most wanted talent are always stolen away from universities, even too early, so they don't complete their master's or bachelor's degree. And for example, I was talking with one of my friends during summer about summer jobs, and he said that all the best candidates that they have already dropped out, that some other companies have stolen them. So then we talked about the recruitment process, and he said that they in a way they screen the candidates, their CVs, and then they sent them a take-home assignment. And that's not candidate-driven mindset. The candidate-driven mindset is to get to know the person, if they would be a fit, what do they want to do, and then explore if they are motivated enough and engaged enough to do an assignment for the role.
Really, really good points, and I think that this is of course you have to. The problem, as you kind of alluded to, is with the IT and tech field that there are these general ideas, and for example, this candidate or applicant-driven market that is true in a sense, and then on the other hand, it's not true. And then people, of course, when in the internet and for example in short YouTube videos, for example, with my channel, you have to condense stuff and information, and this is why I love this kind of long format discussions, because we're able to go into more detail and actually understand the intricate details of how the market works. But going back just for a second before we move on, how would you actually define a senior job applicant? And then jumping a bit to the next topic, what are some of the most attractive technologies, for example, that are in high demand at the moment? Of course, this is going to change within a couple of months, but what is the current, how does it look like currently?
Yes, yeah. About technology, so for example, every single university and University of Applied Sciences, they teach the basics, so the Java or older languages, if I can say. So Java, JavaScript, JavaScript framework, some of them, and then C++, C#, either of them, Objective-C, not so much. So there is currently a huge gap in terms of mobile developers, for example. And mobile developers, they do Android or iOS development with very certain technologies. And another thing is the technologies that changed on the backend side, like Golang, which is developed by Google. So that's increasing all the time using that. Every single year, there are new front-end frameworks based on JavaScript. So it's to keep up with those developments, it's really, really hard at the moment for universities. Not to mention the whole infrastructure, the whole architecture, and every single product obviously has their own architecture. But
right,
but like and how many how big real-time demands do you want, for example? How fast has the information to flow? Do you have to duplicate it? And do you have an embedded device that's connected to your mobile phone? It really depends on the companies and products as well. But understanding some of the trends are also related to public cloud and what kind of services there are inside public cloud.
That's a very good point, or good points. And would you agree that also there is a growing demand for basically multidisciplinary skill sets. So for example, if you're a developer and you want to work in the financial technology industry, then it would be perhaps useful to, for example, learn, of course, the different development technologies and languages, but then perhaps have at least some basic knowledge, for example, in business theory, or actually, as a case, for example, I'm involved with a technology startup, and we're actually looking for an embedded developer. And that is also something that is very difficult to find, because we have a very specific product that we're building, and we need to have multiple different skill sets. And in the recruitment market, we usually call these the unicorns, people that don't really exist, and then we have to settle. But basically having multidisciplinary skill sets where your skills overlap different fields. Do you agree, or?
Yes, I agree. I could answer that in many ways as well. Startups are always different. I mean, in startups, you hire people who are able to adapt and learn very quickly and take ownership of not just your tasks that have assigned to you, but maybe a bit more. And for startups, understanding also the business is very important. I would answer to that the bigger the company is, the less you need that kind of multidisciplinary. But then again, I can see that in the gaming industry, for example, there is currently a huge need for data analysts, for example. And data analysts don't mean in the gaming industry, they don't just look at the data and see what metrics change. They also evaluate the data. They come up with questions themselves and answer them. They come up with solutions. So that's also about, it's a mixture of business analytics and then data analytics, and then taking initiative.
Really interesting. And actually, this is a great segue to the next topic, which is how to prepare for all of that, what we just discussed during your studies. So taking into account the current job market and what is going to happen in the future, in your opinion, how should a person studying IT or technology build their studies and their curricula to get a great start for their career?
Yeah, very difficult question, because I remember when studying, I actually have completed 2 bachelors and 1 master. 1 bachelor first because I didn't know what I want to do. And then I found out what I really want to do. So then I started studying something else. So as a student, it's really hard to understand what kind of opportunities there are on the job market. What kind of role would be a good one for me. And then when you graduate, then it's always a bit exciting to see what kind of openings there are in reality, and what kind of chances do I have in getting to those openings. So how to get prepared for IT and gaming industry is fairly simple, in a way that if you study computer science and you know the basics of computer science, or you know the basics of data analytics or such, then I think that's the most important, understanding the basics. For gaming industry, there are their own education providers, and they are actually listed on Neo Games websites. So usually if you start studying gaming industry related stuff, then you usually go to those. But how I would advise people is because applying for a job or thinking about your career is all about yourself, like who you are, what are you really good at, what kind of interests do you have. So be curious and explore different kind of options, that what make you excited and what don't. So attending webinars is super easy nowadays. It doesn't cost anything. You can just attend any webinar that you might find interesting, and then see if you get excited of the topic or not. Portfolio, that's one of the biggest in a way that I would advise people to do. not necessarily like a study diary, but like writing yourself that what kind of things, what courses have been the most exciting to you, and then documenting a bit on what kind of things you have done during your studies. Yeah, those are a few ones that I would suggest people do already doing.
What is your opinion on, for example, participating in for example, in Stack Overflow, or for example, building your own projects in GitHub? What do you think about?
Yes, that's what I mean with portfolios as well. That for what is a recruiter interested when they are talking with students who want to enter the job market, is that especially related to computer science and gaming, as we talked about, the technologies are changing all the time. So what I'm interested in is the ability to learn. And also I want to see what have people learned so far. So digging into GitHub or Stack Overflow, or if the person has attended hackathons or searched Kaggle, for example, that is already a really good sign that the person is interested in learning and exploring what's out there on the market.
So super interesting. But if we, for example, put away the courses and the degrees for just a moment, and all the kind of the schoolwork on the side, what else can students in the fields of IT and technology do during their studies to build their future careers, for example, in terms of networking?
Yeah, I'm sure many others have told you in your webinars that networking. Yeah, it's very important. And how you can do networking is via hobbies. And for example, if there wasn't Corona, I would encourage people to start salsa classes or couple salsa, because
interesting.
Yeah, there are so many international people who dance couple salsa or Latin dances, and it's such a friendly environment. Now I completely lost what I had to say. Hobbies, networking. One of the things to remember is that it's not always about what you know, what kind of skills you have. It might be about who knows what you know. And that's how you get a job. So people refer their friends to the companies where they have personally entered already. So in that sense, networking is also super important.
I've talked quite a bit on the channel about, for example, the Finnish student culture and different student volunteering jobs, organizations. How do you see them in terms of networking and the opportunities to build your future career already from the start of your studies? What kind of how do you actually see them, and what specific tips would you perhaps give in terms of these kind of student activities?
I can maybe tell a bit about my own career story. That I took part in Guild, isn't it Guild? In University Guild, yeah. So I was an active member for 3 years. Then I got one award for being such an active member in that organization. And during my studies, I was really interested in following the trends in the HR and recruitment markets. So I did my bachelor's degree or bachelor's thesis about job applications, actually. So I was following Twitter and different kind of stuff in Twitter. So how I got my first internship is based on those facts, that not necessarily what do I know, because there isn't really an education to be a recruiter, for example. So how I showed that I'm the best applicant for the role is that I'm interested in learning new. I have already attended like these different organizations and meetups. I follow these trends. And then being an active member in a guild is and being a mentor is really good in a way. Stuff that you can put to your CV that show that you are most likely a good team member, good team player, and are eager to develop stuff and learn new.
Absolutely, and now that you shared your background, I could actually mirror back and super quickly just summarize mine as well. Of course, I'm still at this time when we are recording this in December 2020. I'm still trying to finish my master's thesis. But during my studies, I've been extremely active in different student organizations. I volunteered for multiple years in different sports clubs, for example, organizing huge events from skydiving courses to multiple hundred person parties and outdoor events, but then also quite a lot of career-oriented stuff as well. And of course, I don't know this 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that this has had a pretty big impact on my career because during the last 5 or so years, I haven't actually have had to apply to a single job because every single job that I've gotten since has come through a referral. So someone has actually recommended me for those jobs. And again, this is super important to know or understand. Actually, what we spoke with Steven Ter Horst in a previous episode was that in Finland, networking doesn't come if you force it. You have to spend quite a lot of time in getting to know people, both in personal and professional level, and only by building that initial trust and a mutual trust, only then can you actually start receiving these kind of referrals, and they will come organically instead of you asking for them.
And continuation to what I said is that after the internship, I was actually headhunted for a company. So even though I only had the internship, what I had done is I had built a portfolio or page to LinkedIn. So who am I? What interests me? What have I done during my internship? Then I just simply put open to new opportunities. Now there's obviously the tab, and then you can create the hashtag open to work to your profile. So nowadays there are different ways to also companies to know that you're open to new. And then one more thing I did is that I created a CV on top of Prezi.
Oh, okay.
So in a way, you can create your CV based on PowerPoint, Pinterest, Prezi, or anything else to be creative and show that you can think outside the box. So that's one additional advice.
Really interesting. That's actually something that I've never thought about. But actually, it's super interesting idea. And that actually works as a really good segue to our next theme, which is practical tips for job hunting. So one of the big challenges for international job seekers in Finland, at least according to what I've heard personally through my discussions, is that people simply don't know where to look for jobs. And actually, I've been approached by quite a lot of highly educated people with master's degrees who have immigrated into Finland, and they say that they cannot find a job because the city employment office doesn't have anything for their field. And this is of course this is so hard to hear because of course the employment office is not the place to go. However, of course we want to give good tips. So in your experience, what are the best places for IT and technology talents to actually find relevant jobs in their field?
Yes. For a niche gaming industry, I would just advise people to go to gamesjobs.fi. Almost every single Finnish gaming company is there with their openings. Fairly simple. Another way is to go to Glassdoor, because Glassdoor is getting more common in Finland as well. So it's in a way platform that's also using employer branding functionalities, because any employee or candidate can leave a comment about the interview process or how they like working at the company. And that is also why companies should take that candidate-driven mindset into recruitment, because nowadays there are so many open platforms where people can't just write shit about your company and there you go, your grading goes down. So Glassdoor has the biggest IT companies that where the working environment is English already to start us. And then one more thing I would do is to take a look at the biggest, or let's say, for example, the top 50 biggest IT companies in Finland, because they are also, many of them also have an English working environment. And the final part is that I read just last week that Meet Frank has started to do cooperation with Business Finland. So on Business Finland page, there's also a few openings where those companies are also open to hire candidates from abroad. So if they are ready to hire candidates from abroad, then they must be ready for local international talent as well, because then that's another story. But in a way, there are still many companies who also are open to international talent, but not to hire senior talent from abroad because they're afraid of the bureaucracy. They're not sure what does it take, and therefore they leave that out.
Yeah, this is a discussion for another day, and it's really it's a really frustrating discussion that we touched upon really quickly with Stephen again in a previous episode. But yeah, I think all of the tips are really great, and actually I will have all of the links that you mentioned and the websites in the description box below here on YouTube if anyone wants to go and check them out. I would actually add here that there's also a bunch of specific recruitment companies that you could look into. Some of them are not specialized in IT and tech jobs, but they do have some of them. Just to list a few out of the top of my head, for example, my previous employer, A-Talent Recruiting. Then we have Academic Work, which is a big Nordic recruitment company. Then we have a company called Student Work. However, all of these three, they focus mostly on like younger talents who are in the start of their career. But then, for example, if you're a more senior person, there's, for example, the company called Talented, which is a really good IT recruitment company in Finland. And of course, then the final tip, as you alluded to a bit, is to directly contact some of the companies that you know that you are interested in. So these recruitment companies are mostly for people who don't necessarily know what kind of jobs they want and where specifically they want to work. And they are good tools for this passive type of job application, because you can register yourself as an active job seeker, and then they will let you know when there's any openings that you could perhaps apply to.
A tip also when applying for a job. So in a way, what gaming companies and startups are interested, especially because they are usually small companies, they have created their product themselves. It's their baby. So you have to, in a way, tell why do you want to apply for this job, and why do you think that the product is good. So do some research of the product, whether it makes you excited or not, because you would be working with the product, with the team around you. And if the product doesn't really interest you, then it's not the job for you.
Excellent point. And actually, you jumped to my next question, which is basically to the actual application process. So this is actually, again, something where people bump into a lot of issues because they come from different cultural backgrounds. It's completely natural that the recruitment process in the United States is different from, for example, Singapore, and then Finland is different from both of them. So without going too deep into this rabbit hole, because we could discuss about this for hours, what would you say are the most important things that international talents need to know about the Finnish IT recruitment market and how it works and the application process itself?
If I think about just the application stage, so when you apply for a job, so for students, I would encourage everyone to write down that what technologies have they at least tested and what kind of projects they have worked on, because what recruiters will then ask in the interview is situation-based questions, because those are the best ones in my opinion. So let's say you have is there a product or project where you had to learn a new technology from scratch? What did you learn in that project? What was your role in that? Were you doing that alone, and is there something that you would have done differently in that project? So in a way, listing that what kind of things you have studied and what kind of interest areas you have. volunteer work. So if you have been in a guild, if you have taken part in hackathons, anything like that, it's very useful information. And then to the cover letter, of course, like why are you applying for this role, and what makes you excited about the company and the product, and why do you think that you are the best candidate for the role? Or you don't have to necessarily write that to the cover letter, but the trickiest question that the recruiter can then ask you in an interview is that, what question should I ask you for us to want to hire you?
Interesting. That's
so in a way question. Inventing the question yourself and then answering that, why you over other applications.
That's a really good tip, because I actually haven't encountered that myself either, and I would be in quite a lot of trouble if I were asked that, because I have not prepared for it. Great.
Yeah, it's a tricky. I know I don't usually ask for juniors that, but you can prepare for it mentally already. That why you, and then build the cover letter based on that.
Absolutely. Are there, if we, for example, consider some of the earlier podcasts, for example, again, Steven ter Horst, he spoke about the fact that in Finland it is really important that you think about the company and not only just yourself. What I'm meaning is that you have to argue in your cover letter and in the interview, for example, why are you the person for the company? What benefit are you going to bring the company itself, and why should they hire you? Why should they add you to their team? And then actually Saku Tihverainen spoke about creating a story for yourself. So what is your story? And he based this on saying that most cover letters are extremely boring. They're basically just lists of keywords, which are really boring to read, and they don't bring any personality out. They don't really tell about you as a person. Do you have any points like this, something specific or special that in your mind would separate applicants from each other?
Yes, bring persona to the cover letters. That's a really good point, because what the employer is interested in is your skills, your motivation, your persona, and then how would you fit to this specific role. So one of the some of the cover letters that I remember clearly has a lot of persona. So I'm not encouraging you to tell every secret about yourself or like your every hobby, because it's not relevant for the job itself. But if I recall the cover letters that I remember from very many years ago, is that these are from both international candidates who actually live abroad. One of them said that I love Mammi. And I'm like, what? Okay, this is super weird. Okay, let's talk. And then another one is that I'm the biggest fan of Finnish heavy metal.
Interesting. Oh yeah. So Mammi is a rye-based dessert that we eat in Finland. It basically divides the nation 50-50. Some people hate it, some people love it, but. Yeah. So
if you bring something fun, for example, let's say someone is applying for okay, this is just invented at this moment, but if you apply for our roles and then you have played one of our games, and then you get a fiend. So in a way, our game has some RPG kind of elements. So you find a new fiend or a character that you can use in your game. So you can, for example, say that, hey, on level 26, I got this character, and it reminds me of myself because some reason.
That's actually
anything that could in a way make your CV stand out, or you can stand out on by making your CV based on PowerPoint or other.
That's a really interesting point as well. So basically tie your personality or yourself into the company somehow, which makes it super relevant for the hiring manager as well. All right. I think we have had some really, really interesting points. If you have anything to add, some tips if you that you want to share, please. But after that, of course, it would be great if you would like to briefly tell the audience a bit about Seriously and what kind of people you're looking for, and of course, where to find more information.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking a couple of do's and don'ts
Sure.
in the industry as well. One thing is that quite many need to do their thesis. So if you start looking for a company where you would like to do your thesis, come up with the thesis suggestion yourself. Because if you contact companies saying that, hey, would you have thesis opportunities? It's really hard for the employer to figure out the subject for you. Because they're not sure what kind of subject would interest you, and then again, what would make sense for the company. So if you approach candidates with a thesis approach, then come up with a subject that I was thinking that maybe this kind of subject would interest you and myself. What do you think? And another is, of course, the know yourself. So the employers and recruiters are going to ask you, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do? What makes you excited? So knowing yourself is the key in applying for your first role, especially, which takes me to don'ts. There are many people who find gaming industry attractive. It is attractive. It's a very cool industry. I love it. But then what makes me a little sad is when I talk with candidates who say that they have applied for a certain kind of role, and I ask them why they have applied for it, and they say that I just want to get into the gaming industry. And I was thinking that this could be a good Kickstarter for me. And then if I get inside the company, then I would see if this is the right role for me. And from employer's point of view, it's very risky, all in all, to hire a person who might not be interested in the position itself 100%. So then I go back to know yourself. So know what kind of position would interest you, and then apply for that, and not just because you want to get inside the industry.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, never wait for an application deadline, because if some companies have a deadline, they might fill them already before the deadline. If there's a superstar candidate who applies already on your first week, so most likely they have already gone through like 4 interview stages with that person. So then you're behind.
I think, I think these are all really good points, and especially the first one that you mentioned about the possible thesis opportunities. This actually, again, goes back to what we spoke with Stephen, who mentioned that if you reach out to companies, I'm sorry, Stephen, and with a couple of other interviews, we spoke about reaching out to people, for example, through LinkedIn. And I've heard that many internationals, when they network, they reach out to Finnish recruiters by asking them, hey, I'm a job hunter in Finland. Would you like to review and give me feedback on my LinkedIn profile? In theory, that's a nice idea. But you have to take into account that then that person has to go to your LinkedIn profile and start combing through your profile for comments, which might take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it could also take an hour. In a sense, that's not a problem. The same actually with me. I love answering comments and giving people feedback on their LinkedIn account profiles. But the problem, it becomes a problem when you have 20 people, 100 people per month reaching out to you asking for the same thing. And then you have to basically multiply that 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour by 20 or 100, which makes it impossible. So the same thing here with the thesis opportunities. If you reach out to a employer, a hiring manager, or a recruiter, and you basically ask for an opportunity, or you ask a question, whatever, make it as easy, as quick, and as simple for them to reply and get back to you as physically possible. People who are hired in these companies are busy people. They have other lives as well, and they will close their phones when they leave the office. Most of them, at least, and using hours and hours on communicating people about these kind of requests is unfortunately something that most people cannot do. So I think that that's a really important question, because a lot of people have been reaching out to me simply saying that why cannot I get any connections on LinkedIn when I'm reaching out like this.
Yeah, thank you for saying that out loud. I can personally say that we just counted that I have hired 42 people this year, plus actually the people I have hired by a finder seeker. So that's maybe 50 people a year. So you can imagine how many candidates I have spoken this year to fill those roles. So being a recruiter is also very hectic. So you constantly communicate with candidates, you communicate with hiring teams, and then there are plenty of emails to answer. And I try to be the best in my job. And our teams, nowadays I have a recruitment coordinator who joined us a month ago. So our plan is to be the best recruitment team in town next year. Yes, and one part of that is, of course, try to give feedback and answer to every single question. But then promising also to answer every single LinkedIn request or LinkedIn message that we get. There's simply so many messages that it is really hard to answer questions unless you have a really simple question where I can answer with only one sentence or two sentences.
Good point. But yeah, again, would you like to finish off by giving people some information about Seriously, and specifically what kind of people are you looking for, and where to find more information if they're interested in the gaming industry?
Yeah. For more information about the gaming industry, I would go to neogames.fi or IGDA. There are many Facebook groups Facebook groups related to the gaming industry, and obviously meetup groups as well. For example, Unity meetup group, if you're interested in programming on top of Unity. So you can find out more about us at seriously.com webpage. Our games are Best Fiends, so you can go to bestfiends.com. They are mobile, free-to-play puzzle adventure games, and we're as a company we have doubled in size this year in terms of people. So we are actively open to hire more talented people, and now in this Q4 we have been more open to also junior talent, which is really nice. So what kind of talent are we looking for? We are looking for game programmers, game artists, but also data analysts who want to get inside the gaming industry, who are interested in the gaming industry, in our product, and taking that business approach into looking at the data. One tip for people who are interested in the gaming industry and haven't studied gaming per se is that not only data analytics roles are increasing, but also data science, obviously, and game economy. So if you're not sure what does a game economy design mean, you can do a little search on the internet, because that's definitely a role that is getting more popular and popular.
Interesting. And again, as you alluded to, if you are interested in Seriously or any other game company, you should of course get to know their products. I will actually also have your game linked in the description box below, so that you can actually go download it and play it and see if that would be something that you would like to develop in the future. Finally, if people want to follow you on social platforms to find more about, for example, the opportunities that you guys have, where can people actually find you?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best. If you send me a connection request, please add just one sentence. Why are you connecting with me? And then where you can find me is, of course, Twitter, but I have to say that I'm not using it anymore so actively as I would want to. I also have one blog post in Medium, but hopefully next year I'll get the chance to write there a lot of more blog posts related to recruitment.
Excellent. Thank you, Bea, so much for all the great tips.
Thank you.
I'm sure that people have been getting a lot of value in this. And again, I will have all the links to the pages that we spoke about, as well as to your profiles in the description box below.